about just 1 minute. We're just going to wait just for the last few people to join us. We'll make a real quick announcement. If you have any questions during the presentation on your GoToWebinar toolbar, you'll see a place to enter any questions. And at the conclusion, we'll save a few minutes just to answer any questions that are there. And that's pretty much it. And we're going to get going now. So again, thank you for joining us today. And today's webinar is going to be a training session on AlarmBiller, where we're going to be talking mostly about a lot of invoicing, but we're also going to get into credit card and e-check setups and payment processing and talk a little recurring revenue. So we're going to do a little bit more than just invoicing. We're going to even get into the work orders and processing a work order, and right down to creating the invoice on that work order. So before we get going, just again, there's the topics to be covered. So we'll go through that. I want to just mention that we are here to help you. So if you're currently using AlarmBiller, or even if you're just trying it out, if you have any questions, just go and submit a support ticket to us. And Brad Solomon, our account executive, will be here to help you out. So with that said, let me just jump out of here and let's get right into it. So I've already taken the liberty and logged in to AlarmBiller today. And here you can see the main screen when it first opens up. And what I want to just do is, before we jump into it, is just talk about the notifications to process and what this means. This is kind of like a little center here to tell you what's going on in the application and if there's any actions that you need to take place. So for example, the first one says credit cards and e-checks. And they're both set at 0 right now, as you can see. What that's telling me is that I don't have any credit cards or e-checks that I need to submit for funding as of right now. If you would see a value in those, and we'll create one in a moment, and you'll see what that will do, then we know to go in and process those transactions. A forte error would be a credit card or e-check that for some reason during the processing an error occurred, and this will just tell you you need to go in and fix that. And again, I'll show you where to do that in just a moment. It also tells me we currently have 12 open work orders. We have 3 that have an appointment scheduled, 3 open appointments. It's telling me my next recurring to process is February 2014. This is really to tell you the oldest recurring revenue in the system that hasn't been processed. So in this case, I actually created one today for our demo that we're going to process in just a moment. So that's why it says February 2014. Normally, at the end of the month, you should see the next month, depending on when you're going to create them. The last 3 is what we have the accounting lockdown date. What the accounting lockdown date says is, based upon this date, I cannot create any transactions that are equal to that date or older. So basically, I've locked down the system from that date. And I'll show you how to change that in just a moment. I currently have 0 support tickets open. And invoices, credits not sent, those are either invoices or credits that I have created on customers' accounts, but I haven't delivered the invoice at this time. And I'll show you how to do that. So that's what the notification center is for, to tell you what's going on within the system at any point in time. So let's go ahead and go into a customer. And the customer we're going to work with today, his name's Peter. So I'm just going to type in Peter over here in our quick customer lookup. And there's my customer. And when we open the customer, as you know, you'll see the customer's name and address, phone number, some information about them, as well as how much open invoices, credits, or unapplied cash they currently have, as well as how much recurring revenue that they generate. So this customer has $100 in total recurring monthly revenue. And you can also see that they're set up for auto pay with a credit card ending in 9821, meaning when we process any recurring revenue, it's going to automatically create a credit card transaction using the credit card with the last 4 digits of 9821. And we'll go into that in just a moment. Now, one thing I want to talk about before we begin is the delivery method for an invoice. When you set up a customer, you have 3 options. So I'm going to click on Edit Customer here. And this is where we can actually change their default delivery method for any new invoice created. And you have 3 options: email, mail, or print. If they're set to email, when an invoice is created, it will automatically email that customer. If it's set to mail, the system will automatically mail the invoice to that customer. There is a fee for every invoice that's mailed, so check with Brad if you have any questions on the pricing with that. If you choose print, then you just print the invoice yourself, and then you can mail it yourself. Again, print and email, there are no additional charges for either of those. So I'm going to come back into the customer now. And let's go ahead and let's talk, before we create an invoice, let's just review sites and systems. So within AlarmBiller, we have our customer. We also can create as many sites and systems for that customer. Now this customer only has one site. So you notice here's my site, there's the address, that's the location where we're providing services, which can be different than the billing address. And if we click on the site, we can view the actual site information. Now, one of the most important things about the site is that within the site, you're going to set up what are called the tax rules for any invoices created for that site. And if you have any questions on those, please just submit a ticket to our support center. And again, someone will be very happy to help you out with that. We're not going to cover the sales tax setup today, though. Now, within each site, we get systems. So you notice here's my system that we installed there. This happens to be a burglar alarm system. Now, you can have multiple systems at the site level. So you could have a burglar alarm system, and you might also have an access control system. Again, you could have as many systems at a site as you need to. So I'm just going to click the back button here and just go back one page. And as we see that, I could see here's my site and here's my system. So I could have opened the system at the previous screen or just click View here. And now I'm looking at my burglar alarm system. Now the system contains its warranty. In this case, we had a 1-year parts and labor warranty that began on 2/15/2012. So once it expires, the service level will determine how you're going to invoice for that. And if you have any questions on that, please, again, contact our support. I'm not going to go through all the setup on that today. But if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to call us. Now, within the system, we have recurring revenue. That's our first tab right here. So this system has just a maintenance fee that's going to be billed monthly. Its next invoice date is February 1st, and it's $100 a month maintenance fee. So let's just say we wanted to add new recurring revenue. Maybe they also needed a monitoring charge. So we could just click New Recurring right here. And here I can choose my recurring item code. So I'm going to choose monitoring. There's my description, and the description is what's going to print on the invoice. You can override this if you want to. I'm going to make this one monthly also. So I'm just going to say monthly. I had a default rate, so I'll leave it there, $29.95. Every time you either add, modify, or change recurring revenue, you need to tell it why. And this is what we call the recurring reason. So I'm just going to say that this was a new sale. And if there's a purchase order number for that, we could put it in here. And this is the activation date. When do we want to bill it as of? Well, I'm just going to change it to February 1st. So we're going to bill them for the whole month. If I wanted to activate them as of today, I could have just left today's date in there. So I'm just going to click Save here now. And now we've created this new recurring revenue record. So now you can see here's my recurring revenue record. And our RMR tracking data will tell us the date it went into effect, the reason why, and the amount. So let's go back to the system now. And now we can see we have $129.95 worth of total recurring revenue. Now, what we also have under the system are the parts. The parts are all the equipment that we've installed at this location. And you notice we can have the part, number, the location where that part is, if it's tied to a zone, its install date, if it's been removed, the removal date, as well as the serial number for that. If you needed to add a new part, you could just simply click the new system part and add one. Now, anytime you do a work order and you add a part with a service ticket, it will automatically add it to the system record. So and same thing goes when you do an installation work order. Now, work orders is my next tab, and here's all the open work orders we have for this system. You notice we don't have any. If I click Show All Work Orders, it will show all the ones that have been completed in the past. So this is a completed work order here. And if we wanted to view the details of that, I could just click View and jump right into the details of that. And here I could see everything we did. I'm going to come out of that right now, and we're going to create a work order in just a moment. So I'm going to click the Customer Manager, which will bring me back to the main screen for our customer, Peter Franklin. Now, let's go ahead and let's just, before we create the recurring revenue, let's go into the credit card and e-check. And let's talk about this for just a moment. The first thing you'll see on this is any transactions. And this is the credit card or e-check transaction history for this customer. If you notice it has an A, that means that transaction has been accepted and processed already. If it was a D or an E, that means it was not processed, and the reason why would be D is denied, E maybe there was a processing error, and V is voided, meaning you created a transaction but you voided it before you processed it. So, and again, you could click on the receipt to look at any of these transactions, and it will show you the transaction itself. And then you can also turn around and click on View if you want to view that. I'm sorry, when you click on a receipt, it will actually send the customer a receipt of that transaction. View will actually allow you to look at that transaction and actually see that it was approved and so on. Now, the second tab within our credit cards is the credit card tab itself, which will show us all the credit cards on file for this customer. So here's a credit card, and this is actually a live data system. So I'm not going to be able to create a new credit card while we're doing this, but if you needed to create a new credit card, you simply click the new credit card, and this will bring up the form where you want to add a new credit card for a customer. If you want to, normally it's usually the same customer name and address, so by clicking the Use Customer Address, it will just pre-fill out the billing options for you. Here you would choose the credit card type, whether it's a Visa, American Express, MasterCard. You can also take Discover. You'd put the cardholder name in here, their number, the credit card number, the expiration month and the year. You could give the credit card a description and tell it what the name of it is, as well as you could say, do we want to use this credit card for auto processing? And that would mean that if I check this on, when we generate the recurring revenue, it will automatically use this credit card to process those invoices. Now, the auto day is a day that you could select between 1 and 28. So, for example, if the customer said, please don't take and process the credit card to the 10th of the month, you could just type 10 right in there. And now what will happen is when you generate the transaction, and let's say it was for the March recurring services, it would automatically schedule this transaction to come out of their account on March 10th. And you could pick any day of the month between 1 and 28. So I'm going to just close this because we're not going to create a new credit card, but I just want to show you, if I click on Edit here, we can edit this existing credit card. Now you'll notice when you go to edit a credit card, you will never see the credit card number. That's because AlarmBiller is a PCI compliant application, and the credit card number is actually not even stored within the database. It's stored within the processor, and we store what's called a security token. So it's to protect yourselves, to protect the data for the customer, so that in case of any kind of vulnerability, the data can never be compromised. Now you can see this credit card is set up for auto recurring processing to come out on the first day of the month. So we can also set up a bank account, and a bank account would be just the same as setting up a credit card, but it's just going to be the customer's checking or savings account, as well as you could say if you want to use that for auto processing. And remember, only one check or one e-check or one credit card can be used for auto processing at any time. So let's go ahead and generate our recurring invoices. Now we can do that for an individual customer by clicking on the RMR and say generate recurring invoice. And it would generate the recurring invoices for this one customer only. If we wanted to generate the recurring invoices for all of our customers, you just click the invoices up here on the top, and then from here you would choose the generate recurring invoices. And here we're going to say for what month do we want to do it. So we're going to pick February 2014. If today we wanted to generate our recurring invoices for March, we would just change it to March, and we could generate all those invoices. Now, because we happen to have some invoices that need to be generated for February, if we choose March, it will automatically pick up anything that's past due. So it would pick up the February as well as the March recurring transactions. But let's go in and we're just going to pick February. I'm going to click Continue. And what it's going to do is it's going to give us a list of all the customers that need to get a recurring invoice. So you notice I have 2 customers within the list. And if you expand them, you'll actually see the charges that it's going to generate. So for our customer Peter, we could see it's going to generate the maintenance fees, and it's going to generate the monitoring services for the month of February. So if everything looks good here, and we want to generate these and process these invoices, we just click Finish Processing Invoices. It's going to ask us what is the date we want to date these invoices. So for example, if I was generating the March invoices, and even though it's February 26th, I might want to date those March 1st. In this case, I'm just going to leave and go with today's date and just pick the 26th. The other box on here is our memo. This is the memo that's going to print on all the invoices. It defaulted in our default recurring invoice message. So from here, I can either accept this or I can change it. I'm going to accept it here. So we're going to click Finish Processing Invoices. So we just click that, and now it actually created the invoices, and they've been processed successfully. So I'm going to come back to the home screen now because I want to show you something before we continue on. And you'll notice it now says credit cards to process equals 1. That's because our customer, Peter, was set up for automatic credit card processing. And so let's show you how to process credit cards. When you see a value within there, all you have to do is click on Payments. And under the Payment tab, you'll see Open Transactions. And this will give you a list that as of today's date, February 26th, these are all the recurring invoices that need to be processed. And I can either, if there were multiple transactions in here, we could click Submit All, and it would submit every transaction within this list, whether there was 1 or whether there was 1,000, it doesn't matter. You can also individually submit them just by clicking Submit right from here. Now, I do want to show you one thing before I click Submit here, and I'm going to open up another tab, and I'm just going to click on my customers and say Open Link in New Tab. And well, let's jump real quick into our customer, Peter. So you can have multiple tabs open, as you can see, on the system, so within your web browser. So if I now back inside the customer and I click on the credit card e-checks, okay, you notice that I have my transaction, which is right here in the bottom, that was generated by invoice 10131, which is the invoice we created today. And if I click on View, I can actually view this transaction. And if I wanted to submit this transaction from here, I can actually click Submit the payment right from here as well, or voided if for some reason we didn't want to do this. So I could submit it from here individually, or let's go back to the other tab that had our payments, and I'm going to submit right here, and I'm just going to click Submit All, and this will now submit the transaction for processing. And you see the transactions have been submitted and applied successfully. So that transaction was approved. If for some reason that transaction was denied, it would tell me, and you could click on this Denied tab right here, and this will give you a history of all your previously sent transactions that have been denied. Now what's nice about it is if a transaction was denied maybe because they were over their credit limit or there's some other problem, you could just click the resubmit button and it will actually retry to submit it again to see if it does process. Now, that transaction we just did a moment ago did process, and if we jump into the customer record now, so let's go back into the customer, and we click on credit card e-checks, we can see that that transaction on 2/1 for $138.40 was processed, and it got a status code of an A. Now, when it actually processes, it will automatically create what's called our payment transaction. So if we click on our payments over here, we could see that it's going to create a deposit transaction for our payments. So you don't have to post it to the customer's account. It's going to do it automatically. So all transactions that are processed on the same date, whether they're credit card or e-checks, will create its own payment batch. And it does this because we need that for giving you the ability to do your bank reconciliations when it's time to do a bank rec. Now, if I click View Payments here, we'll see that that transaction, and this is the second one, I did one earlier today, for the $138.40 was part of this payment batch. And if I click on View, I can actually view that payment, and I can actually see how it applied right down to clicking the View Invoice that it applied to. And that was our invoice that was created for our recurring services, the maintenance fees for $100 and the monitoring services for $29.95. Now, I could click on the payments applied from the invoice and see it from there. So you'll notice you could see the same data from multiple sources, whether you're in the invoice, whether you're in the payment, whether you're in the credit card transaction itself. Now, if for some reason I wanted to unapply this payment, it wouldn't reverse the payment. It would sit as unapplied money on the customer's account until I reapplied it. I could click the Unapply Payment button from here. But I'm not going to do that right now. So that's the process of taking it and creating the invoice, the recurring invoice, and with having it automatically apply through a credit card transaction. And as you can see, it's very simple, and the AlarmBiller application is doing the majority of the work for you. Now, just to point out, as I look at this customer and see the invoices, you notice that invoice we created today doesn't show up because all I see here is my open invoices. If I click Show All Invoices, I'll see all the invoices for this customer, including those that have a zero balance. So we can always go back into an invoice, click View, and view that view that invoice. We can also, if for some reason the customer didn't receive this invoice, now remember, they're set up for email. If I click Redeliver, it's going to automatically redeliver the invoice to the customer through an email. Or I could click Print and just print the invoice right from here as a one-off print for this invoice. Okay. So again, if you have any questions so far, please fill out the questions, and we'll get back to those in just a moment. But I'm going to move on now to work orders and talk about, well, before I do work orders, let's just talk about doing a miscellaneous invoice. So let's just say that I'm talking I have my customer, Peter Franklin here, and I want to just create a miscellaneous invoice, not through a work order or not through the recurring revenue. So all I have to do is click New Invoice from here. And it's going to, now this customer only has one site. So you notice my site automatically loaded into my new invoice. If the customer had multiple sites, you will always have to pick which site is that invoice for. The sales tax for this customer defaulted based upon the site record. If you needed to, you can override it and choose a different sales tax code. The terms default from the customer. When is this invoice due? And I'm just going to say it's due on receipt. My salesperson defaulted in from the customer. Again, I can change that if I need to. And how do I want to deliver this invoice? So if I choose email, it will just use the email for the customer on record. Or if for some reason I wanted to mail this one or print it, I can always override it. Now on the left-hand side is my invoice number, my PO number. If the customer did give me a purchase order, I could just type that in there. The date of the invoice, the due date. It automatically calculated it based upon the term. But if I needed to change it, I can. And if I wanted to just put an additional contact in here, I could just type in a contact name. Now here we could put in our invoice items, any parts, or a memo to appear on this invoice. So let's just choose one invoice item. And here I'm just going to pick, maybe this was for installation fee. And I'm going to say it was for, and I'm going to override the rate. I'll put in $500. Now, you notice it automatically knew it was taxable, so it calculated the tax. If for some reason I didn't want to charge sales tax on this, I could just uncheck that, and now it's non-taxable. Okay, we'll keep that taxable. But let's say we could see my invoice total is $500 plus the tax. But let's add a part to here as well, because maybe we want to charge them for a part. So I'm going to pick my Vista 100 control panel. I'll keep the $200. It's taxable. And you notice I can even charge a different taxing code if I needed to on an individual part or item code. Here I could pick a memo, and I'm just going to put in thanks for the biz. And at this point, I can now, if I'm happy with this invoice for the $500, 200 in parts, my sales tax, my invoice total, I have two options. I could pick save and deliver, and that will save this invoice and automatically deliver it via its delivery method if it's email or mail, or I could just click save and it will save the invoice and not deliver it. So I'm going to do that right now. I'm just going to click save here, and this will now, it says the invoice was successfully created. So if I jump back into my customer record, you notice there's my new invoice that we just generated today. Now, let's go back. I'm going to come over here to this screen for a moment, click on the home button. And remember, one of the things I showed you was invoices credits not sent. It now says 13. It was said, I believe, 12 before. That's telling me that I have invoices created that I have not delivered. So what I can do now is I could click on my invoice tab, and I could say, show me my invoices credits not delivered. So here is all the invoices and credits not delivered. And I'm just going to go over here to page 2, and you can see there's the invoice we just created for Peter. And I have an option here, as I could say, deliver all the invoices, and it will deliver every one that's out here in this queue. I could say mark all as printed. If I did that, it would mark them as printed, and it won't deliver them, but it would take them out of the queue. Or I could individually do it from an individual invoice. So if I just wanted to deliver this one invoice, I just click deliver right here, or I could individually mark it as printed, or I could click view to view it and see what it was. But I'm going to click deliver here, and it will now deliver that invoice and send it off to the customer. So the invoice has been delivered. And if I jump back to the home screen now, you'll notice our counter now says 12, because I have 12 left in my queue. Okay, so that's the process if you see that. Now, any invoices created during the recurring process will always be in the invoices credits not sent. So when you generate your recurring invoices, it will generate them, and then you have to go in there and tell it to deliver them. And that just gives you one extra step to make sure that the invoices were done correctly before they go out to the customer. Okay. So, so we created that individual invoice. So let's go back to that customer, Peter, and we could see that there's the invoice. Now, if we're talking to Peter, and Peter says, you know, I'd like to pay that invoice for $750.75, we could click View to view the invoice, and all I have to do is click the Pay It button. The Pay It button will bring me to my credit card payments form, and it will say, okay, I want to pay by invoice. If for some reason Peter just wanted to make a payment on account, I could just choose on account and it will put the money on account, but we're going to say by invoice. I can choose to either use a credit card, and I'll pick the credit card that's already on file, or I could pick an e-check, or I can add a new credit card or a new e-check. So if Peter said, I want to use a different credit card, I could just come right in here and add the credit card on the fly while I'm talking to the customer on the phone. But we're going to use this MasterCard, and here I would put in a description, and usually what I suggest in here is just to put the acknowledgement. You know, this was okay by Peter, okay? And if Peter would like a receipt, all I do is click Email Receipt, and it uses the customer's default email address, but I can override that if I needed to. And if I'm paying this one invoice for $750. If he wanted me to pay this other invoice, I can click on that one and pay multiple invoices right here just by choosing that one also. So now I'm going to pay $1,490. If he only wanted me to pay $600 of this one, I could change that to $600. So you could do partial payments as well. If this looks good and I'm ready to submit this, all I do is click Save, and this will now process the credit card. It will tell us whether it's funded or not. This one was funded successfully. So if you notice, if I look at my customer and I look at the open invoice now, there's the invoice that I paid $600 to. So it still has a balance due. So if I click View here and I choose my payments applied, you notice I paid $600 of that. If I look at all of my open invoices, and let's just click Show All Invoices here, there's the invoice for $750 that's been paid in full. Okay, and if we jump back into our payment screen, you'll notice it automatically added that credit card to my credit card batch payments for the day, because all the credit cards will fund together on an individual daily basis, and there was the credit card transaction for $1,350.75. So again, you don't have to worry about applying the payments when you're doing the credit cards or the e-checks. AlarmBiller is going to do that automatically for you. So again, if you have any questions on anything we've gone through, please fill those out, and we'll get back to you at the end. But let's now move over to work orders. And let's process a work order and process it all the way through to completion, right down to taking a payment from the customer. So I'm going to click on this tab. I opened another tab earlier, and this is my work orders tab, which is this icon right here, which says work orders. And you'll notice when work orders open up, your work orders are going to be color-coded. Let me just take a minute to explain what that is. The work order is color-coded based upon the schedule, the color coding on the top here. A green means my technician is currently on site. It means he's there working, he's arrived, he's on site. Blue means he's been dispatched, meaning he's en route, but he hasn't arrived yet. A gray one means it's a scheduled call. So here's a scheduled call we have for today at 4:15 a.m. I think I meant to put p.m. in there. And a red means the appointment has been completed. If there is no color coding on that, that means it's just an open service ticket that does not have a currently scheduled appointment. So the first tab here is my open work orders. Now from a work order, remember, you create an appointment. So if I clicked on open appointments, here I could see all my open appointments, and you'll see the same color scheme within here. anything that's been on-site, dispatched, or scheduled. Closed work orders will be all of your closed work orders, and you notice most of those have completed appointments, so most of them will be red unless there was no appointment for it. And we'll also have, if I click on recurring work orders, these are any recurring work orders that we have created. I'm not going to talk too much about recurring work orders, but in recurring work orders are like inspections, anything that you want to schedule as a service call or an inspection to do within that customer on a multiple basis, on an automatic basis, whether you want to do it weekly, monthly, semi-annually, annual, twice annual, so you could do that. So again, if you have any questions on the recurring work orders, just give us a call or submit a question, and we'll be more than happy to walk you through that process. So what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to jump back into our customer record, and let's go back into Peter's record here. So let's go pick Peter. And what we're going to do here is we're going to click on work orders. So this will show us every open work order we have for Peter, which I don't have any now. Or I could click on show closed, and this will show previously closed ones. So in case you wanted to look at the history, you can. But what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to click new work order. So we want to create a new work order for our customer, Peter. And what the first thing we do is when we create a new work order, we tell it what kind of work order is it. And here I'm going to just say that this is a service call. And again, remember, you can define what types of work orders you want. So we'll say this is a service call. And what's the current status? So you could track the status of it at any point as well. So I'm going to say this is a new one. The salesperson defaults in from the customer. And if I want to assign a technician to here, if I know, maybe I want Fred to be the technician, I could assign Fred from here. Now, the brief description is really to, when you're talking to the customer, to put in a quick note of why the customer is calling. So maybe this customer called because the keypad, at the back door is not working, okay? So just a quick note in there. Now, if I want to add additional notes, I could come down here to the notes section, and I can add as many notes as I want. And so I could, add a new note here, okay? And each note that we add is going to be user and date stamped, so we have a history of those notes. Now, on the top left, this will tell me my customer's name and address. And this is the address of the location, the site address, where we would be performing the work. Their phone number, their email address. If I want to put in who was this requested by, I could type in Peter. And if you wanted to give me a purchase order number, maybe it was a commercial account, you could type that in here. Now here it's telling me that the system is, we're working on the burglar alarm. The panel type was the Vista control panel located in the basement. The warranty labor has expired, it's the same as the warranty parts. And they're going to be covered under what's called a time and material service contract, which this will show me my fees for that. So my fees are a base fee of $75 to show up. My labor is billed at $125, and we bill in 15-minute increments after the 15 minutes. Why? That's because we set it up that way. If I wanted to, I can change it on an individual work order. So if let's just say that it was supposed to be covered under a full maintenance, I could do that. And you notice it will now tell me parts and labor will not be invoiced based upon the service level. So if it's not to be invoiced, it's just giving you that as a warning message so you know. I'm going to go back to our time and material though here. Now our time and material had a base service fee of $75. So you notice that's my only charge at this point. So just to show up right now, it would be $75 for this customer. Now let's go ahead and create an appointment. So I'm going to click on the new appointment tab, and let's schedule an appointment. And we're just going to pick today's date and right now, the current time. And my technician automatically came in as Fred Johnson because we've told him that's the technician. And the estimated length automatically came in based upon the setup of our service call. So I'm going to click Save here, and you notice it created a new appointment for this ticket. So I'm going to click Save here, because we're going to just save this work order. And I'm just going to jump back into our work order tab right over here. And this will show me all of my open work orders. And I'm just going to come right down over here, and it will show me all my scheduled appointments. And there's the one that we just created for today for Peter Franklin, and it's scheduled for today at 1:45. Now, when we're ready to actually work on it, we could click View. And remember, everything I'm doing right from here works just fine on an iPad or an Android tablet or a PC in the field. So your technicians can log in, and when the technician logs in as a technician, all they can do is do their work orders. And all they will see is their work orders. They won't even see the other work orders. But the technician can then come in here and do everything I'm about to do from here right in the field. So they could come in here, and when they're ready to say that they're on their way there, they just open the appointment. Under the dispatch time, they would click Now. So I'm going to click Save here and save this work order. So if you were in the office, and I'm just going to click on this other tab here and just click the refresh to refresh my work order tab, you'll notice we'll now see that the technician, Fred Johnson, for this customer, Peter Franklin, has been dispatched, and he is on his way. Okay? And if I clicked on Open Appointments, I would see it right within there as well. So let's go back into our work order, and let's go back into Edit It. And this time, we're going to finish this work order. So we're going to go back into our appointment, and I'm going to just take a little liberty here. I'm going to say that we arrived right now. This is this the one we were working on before? Yeah, okay. Okay, so I'm going to just make sure I'm in the right one. Yep, okay. So I'm going to say that we arrived, and now I'm going to go back into this ticket, and what I'm going to say is that we actually completed it. And I'm going to pretend like we completed it at 3 p.m. So I'm just going to come down over here and choose 3 p.m. So it notices that it's going to do its billing from 1:43 to 3 p.m. So it's telling me we were there for 77 minutes. My billable minutes based upon my 15-minute increments and the free time means 75 minutes. So based upon our hourly rate, it knows that the total labor for this work order would be $156.25. You could click the Recalculate Labor, and this is really for if you have multiple technicians, it will automatically recalculate it based upon the total of all the technicians as well as how much free time they were supposed to have. So now that the appointment's completed, I could come over here. You notice it now tells me my labor charges, but let's say we also used a part. I could come in here and pick from my parts list of what part we used, and I'm just going to say we use this keypad, and we put it by the back door. Okay, and it automatically brought in the rate that we're supposed to charge for this keypad. And again, I can override that if I needed to, if I wanted to charge them something different. So at this point, we could see we have our service fee of $75, our labor. We didn't charge for any additional items, so it's 0. We have our parts, so there's my tax, and there's my total. You can also, from a work order, create and add new recurring revenue. I'm not going to go into that now, but if you have any questions on that, please give us a call and let us know. But this is ideal for when a work order is for a new installation, because when the new installation is completed, the installation will automatically then add and activate the recurring services. Okay, I could put an additional note here of what we did. So I could say we fixed and repaired or replaced the keypad. Okay, and at this point, I can now turn around and put a status on the service ticket, and I'm going to say it's completed. Once it's completed, we can now go into the Completed tab, and this is where the technician can show the customer the charges, explain to them what they did, they can come in here and print the customer's name. So it's Peter Franklin. And just hand this over to the customer. If it's an iPad, the customer will just go ahead and sign this away. So sorry about my messy handwriting here. Okay, but they would just sign it. If we wanted to process this and use a credit card to pay for this or an e-check, I could just choose credit card that's currently on file for this customer, or I could take a new credit card right from here and add a new credit card onto the customer's record to take that payment. Okay, so at this point, if everything's good, I just choose the completed work order, and this will close and process this invoice. So it says the work order was successfully closed, the invoice was generated, and the payment was complete. So if I jump into, and I could click right from here to view the invoice, this will show me the invoice that was created. And you notice the invoice was for the $352.78. We've received that, so my payments received is $352. The amount due was 0. If I click on the amount applied, I could see that my amount applied is right there. Let's just jump right into the customer, go back to the customer record, click on my credit card in e-check, and we could see right over here, we could see that the credit card was processed and approved on today's date, 3/26. So there's my credit card. And what it automatically did is automatically emailed the customer and gave them and sent them the receipt and sent them their invoice, letting them know that it's been paid for, and so on. So you don't have to, because this customer was set up for the automatic email delivery. So it's going to automatically communicate with them. And if I jump into my payments tab, you'll notice that we can see that the payment was added automatically to today's credit card payment batch. And there was that last payment that we received for the $352.78. So I know I went very fast today and tried to cover a lot in an hour, but you could see how simple it is to process your credit cards and your payments when you're processing work orders, recurring invoices, or miscellaneous invoices. Now, one last thing I want to show you before I answer any questions, and just to show you one other thing here. So let's just jump back into our customer, Peter. Within the customer record, you'll notice there's also 2 tabs here at the end. One says Notes, and this is where you could just put any general notes for this customer. So if you're talking to a customer and you just want to make a comment about them and put that in here, you can go ahead and do this. So, you know, Peter called and said, thanks for the great service. Okay, and this will just add a note to the customer's record. So these could be collection notes or anything that you want it to be. The other thing you could store within any customer record is documents. So if I click on documents here, I don't have any for this customer, but you could just simply click on add a new record, and I could put a description in here, but maybe this was their contract. So I could put in their contract. I pick a type of file it is, it's a contract, and I would just pick select file. And this would go to my local machine and actually pull whatever document I just did, and I click update, and it actually now added that document right to this customer record. And if I ever want to view that document, you just click download and you can view that document. You can delete it, but again, you have to be an administrator. Regular users wouldn't have access to delete documents. So just 2 other things I wanted to show you, the ability to create notes and documents for any of the customers. Okay, so with that, I wanted to leave a few extra minutes, which we have, for any questions you have. So I'm going to go over here to the questions, and give me 1 second. Before I do the questions, I got a quick little poll that I'm going to ask. I know most of the people on today's call are already using AlarmBiller, but if you're not using AlarmBiller, this is just a poll, and would you like us to sign you up? And if you just click yes here, we'll go right ahead and sign you up. So not too many questions. how do you account for multiple technicians? Okay, very good question. So I'm going to go ahead and I got to close the poll. So get your last chance to get your vote in. Okay, and let's go back into our work orders. And you can have multiple appointments for any work order. So I'm going to just pick this work order right over here because this one doesn't have any technicians on it right now. This one doesn't have any appointments. So I'm just going to click Edit to edit this work order. And we could create multiple appointments. So I could say, let's say I needed 2 technicians to go there today at 1:45. So I could just come over here and pick Fred Johnson and click Save. Now I'm going to click New Appointment, and now I'm going to pick Michael Marks and click Save. So you notice I now have 2 appointments for this one service ticket. And I could dispatch them individually. They could have different times or so on. Now, let's say, for example, they both went out there today but weren't able to finish it and we need to go out there tomorrow. We could even create another appointment, and this time I could create the appointment for the 27th at 1:45. And maybe this time, since those 2 guys couldn't get it done, we're going to send Pete out there. So you notice we can have all kinds of appointments and multiple appointments, as many as it takes for any individual work order. So I hope that answered that question. Let me go on to the next question. Not sure I understand this. What if an invoice is for a contract rather than a T&M service call? I apologize. I'm not sure I understand what you mean by that. So if you want to fill something out to maybe respond a little bit more, I can maybe give that a try, or we'll call you back afterwards. And the next question is, do the documents live on the cloud after an update, and are they editable? The answer is yes, all the documents do live in the cloud. So when you add a document to a customer record, so let's just go into Peter's account again here real quick. When I added that document for Peter, it actually stores this document within the AlarmBiller, so it is readily available from any place and anyone who logs in who has access to see it. You can not edit the document itself. You can edit the type of document and the description, but the document itself is a snapshot of what you saved. If the document is an Excel file, you can download that Excel file, you could change it, and then you can re-upload it as a new document, or you could delete the old one. But it's not, something like, I don't know if you're familiar with SharePoint, that allows you to do collaborative document management. That's not the purpose of it, and so on. I'm being handed a note. What does a tech see in AlarmBiller when they are signed in? Okay, so when a technician logs in, and remember, when you set up your users, I'm just going to jump into the setup real quick here, you'll create users. And if you had a user, and that user, and I'm just going to click Edit here to edit this user, you'll give them different roles. And we have a complete list of what all the roles and what a user can do. But if a user was set up as a technician, when they log in, all they can see and work on is their work orders. Now, I'm an administrator, so I could see all the work orders, but they can only see their own work order. So unless they're assigned to that work order, they won't see it. And this way, the technician using the iPad in the field or some other device will only be able to see and work on their own work orders. They can process that work order all the way through to completion, right down to getting the customer signature and taking the payment for the for the completed work order. But really, that's all they can do. They can't do any of the payment processing. They can't do any of the invoicing. They can't go in and manage customer records and so on. So I hope that answered that question. So let me just see if I probably have time for maybe one more question. Okay, can you show again how to send a receipt for a previous payment? Yes. There was another question, how to invoice for a proposal rather than a service call. The answer to that is when you're done with the proposal, it will generate and create the invoice through the work order for you. I purposely didn't go through proposals today. We are going to have another training session that goes through proposals, hopefully within the next few weeks. Or if you have any questions on that beforehand, again, I'll make sure that Brad gets a hold of you who asks that, and he could go through that in more detail. But let me just end with this last one. Could you show again how to send a receipt for a credit card transaction? So yes, I could just go right into the customer record. So again, let's just go right into Peter's record. And all I'm going to do is come over here, and I'll pick the credit card e-checks. And here's every credit card and e-check that processed. So let's just say we want to resend one for this one that was processed today. And for the 352, all I have to do is click receipt. By clicking receipt, this will automatically resend the customer the receipt for that transaction. Okay? And you notice it says the credit card payment transaction receipt has been redelivered. Well, with that, I just want to say thank you. I'm just going to put this one last slide back up here and just say, again, if you have any questions, you could go in and submit a support ticket to us or contact Brad. And if you don't know, just in case, I will just jump back into here. By submitting a support ticket on your main screen, you'll just click Support Center. And this is the tool right here where you can just click New Support Ticket. And this will allow you to create any question for us, or and this will send it to us and we'll get back to you right away. So with that, again, I want to say thank you very much for joining today, and thank you. And again, if you have any questions, please get a hold of us and let us know. Have a great day. Bye-bye.